Good afternoon, almost evening, tactical aficionados. I am Damien Darko, and you are watching Bansai Tactical, where it's not illegal if you don't get caught. Well, speaking of legality, kind of the crux of today's conversation. So, in my last upload, a review for the Umarex Javelin, this bad boy right here, a lot of people pointed out in the comment section that I made a bit of a factual error when I said that, quote unquote, the Umarex Javelin would ship to all 50 states through Amazon. See, that's where I was absolutely incorrect. It will not ship to all 50 states through Amazon. As somebody in the comments pointed out, it was not shipping to California. What I meant to say was that there was no federal or state regulations on this item that I could find evidence of that would exclude it from shipping anywhere. But state and federal regulations are not the only ones we have to take into consideration. We also have to talk about, I guess, another branch of government, and that would be corporate. So, pull up a log, son. Let me spin a yarn here. So here on Bansai Tactical, we are about to be engaging in what I like to call Black Powder Summer. We're going to be reviewing a whole bunch of black powder firearms, or I should say non-firearms, over June and July. However, before we can get there, you got to go back in time about at least 6 months or so, maybe a year at this point. I was looking into purchasing some of our first black powder pew-pews. And one of the ideas I had, since I'm in the state of New York and could not have it delivered to my state, would be to go and check out the state of New Hampshire. So myself and some other brave members of the Shattered Laugh Productions crew hopped in the car and head over to New Hampshire, and there was a pew-pew store right on the border of New Hampshire and Massachusetts. And we thought, okay, let's take a look at some of these old Civil War war horses. Now, let me remind everyone that in America, black powder cap and ball, so non-metallic cartridge firing firearms, are not considered to be modern firearms. Under, I guess, maybe it was the ATF law, I don't remember exactly, but under one law or another, so they're not considered to be modern firearms. And with the exception of maybe 2 or 3 states, I know, including New Jersey, because the Jersey guy got my comment section and reminded me that they are considered pew-pews where he lives, and I'm not surprised, because you can't pump your own gas in New Jersey. So outside of New Jersey, New York, I don't even think California, I think California is okay. Maybe 1 or 2 other states, they are considered non-restricted. However, when I went to the shop in New Hampshire and spoke to the gentleman over there, what he told me was that because of where I lived, he was not willing, this is the key part here, willing to sell me one of these items. I thought, that's interesting. And essentially what it came down to is that even though it was not restricted on the federal level, because my state, not his, but mine, might have a problem with it, was up in the air, their store's policy was not to sell it to me. It doesn't mean that they couldn't. There was no legal barrier to them selling me that item, which is not a firearm under federal law. So because of store policy, he was refusing to do this, just like because of store policy, he was refusing other sales that might be going to Massachusetts. Now, with a lot of those were technically firearms, so maybe there is more of an actual state legal ground for those, but for ones that are not by definition firearms, it gets a lot muddier, and it turns out it's their store policy. Now, why is that important? Well, this happened to be a fairly well-to-do pew-pew store. I'm still trying to avoid certain words. It was a pretty big place. I don't know if it was a chain, but it was a big business. It was like a Walmart-sized store of this stuff. And the bigger of a business you have, the more you're going to end up, dotting your I's and crossing your T's. I've been to other stores in, I think it was in the state of Massachusetts, where I said, hey, I'm interested in that 1860 Army right there. That guy said, oh, well, you know what? That's not even a firearm. I'm like, I know, sir. And he's like, we'll give you a discount for cash. I'm like, I got cash. And I walked out of there with no cash, no background, report, none of that stuff. Just flat out, here's your cash, here's your item. And that's all the concern there was. And this was a very different kind of operation. It was more of a mom and pop thing. It was being run by guys that were really into this. It's not just a business, you know what I'm saying? They probably had certain values that were attached to it as well. Now let's take a look at Well, Amazon. Amazon is one of the biggest businesses in the world. If it comes to shipping, I believe it's the biggest. I don't know anybody who's really going to be able to compete with them on that front. And when you are that big of a business, you are under an absolute ton of scrutiny from watchdog groups. You have your marketing team in your head. You have board meetings to make decisions. Essentially, you just remove all of the individual human decisions from that gigantic machine that you're running. And when you do that, you end up having to make some concessions because you only have so much manpower to actually go through the fine comb of state laws and also jurisdiction issues. So when I was trying to purchase the Lancer Scorpion, which is a less lethal launcher, I found that I could not purchase it through Amazon, despite the fact that I checked and checked again and found out that no, there was no state law in the state of New York forbidding the shipping of this product. It was a black on black, all black, firearm looking product, but it was not a firearm. It was an air gun. It was even less restricted than the black powder. So I'm sitting there saying, what's going on here? Why is this happening? Well, little did I know I'd encountered a situation like that before, and it was actually in Bridgeport, Connecticut. Cue the Family Guy clip.
Dear Family Guy bastards, who the hell do you think you are? I'll have you know that Bridgeport is among the world leaders in abandoned buildings, shattered glass, boarded up windows.
Only town in America so terrible you actually get called out on Family Guy. Anyway, as it turns out, there is a Cabela's or Bass Pro Shop in Bridgeport, Connecticut that will not sell airsoft items. There was some kid, maybe like 13 or so, asking somebody at an actual firearms counter, is like, oh, are any of these airsoft? And the man says, no, these are all actual firearms. He's like, oh. And then the man says, we can't sell airsoft. I thought, that's funny. You're sitting over a case of like a 1911 and a Glock 19, but you can't sell airsoft. So it turns out that because of some legal issues they had over there, mostly stemming from a high level of crime and delinquency, particularly with kids and kids doing stupid stuff, like, shooting people with paintball and airsoft from moving cars, the local municipality forbid the selling of those products within its limits. So even though there's no state law in Connecticut forbidding the sale of airsoft, they could not do them there. At a different Cabela's further up in Connecticut, was it New Haven? I can't exactly remember right now. They sell airsoft and those such items up the wazoo. A huge selection because there's no local laws or jurisdiction issues getting in the way of it. So with Amazon being able to deliver pretty much everywhere in the country, maybe everywhere in the world really, they run into so many state and jurisdiction issues that they've decided to play it safe, and it makes sense from a business standpoint. So when I looked into the Lancer Scorpion, for example, I found out that there were certain areas in New York, certain towns in particular, like Brooklyn, which is, in the 5 boroughs, and the 5 boroughs of New York City are very, very anti-Second Amendment. There's been actual judges there who said, don't bring up the Second Amendment in my courtroom. Anything that looks like a pew-pew is getting thrown out, and the Lancer looked enough like it that within those 5 boroughs, they would not deliver it. And because Amazon didn't want to risk accidentally running athwart of state laws, they just decided that they're not delivering it to New York State, which would end up including things like upstate New York, which is basically the sticks. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense from a practical standpoint, but it does from a business standpoint. And I believe that this is what's happened to our friend, the Umarex Javelin. Even though I checked Google and made sure that it was technically legal to be shipped in all 50 states. I mean, there's probably weird ones. You wonder about places like Hawaii, which aren't attached to the mainland. Not sure. Puerto Rico, not technically a state. I don't know. But from what it told me, all 50 states, somebody said it had an issue with California, and I'd have to run a fake address of California through Amazon in order for it to tell me, because all I knew is it didn't have a problem shipping to New York, because as I said before, New York is scared of things that look like pew-pews, not actual crossbows, which are much more dangerous, as we saw during that review. This thing is kind of terrifying. It's considerably more dangerous than airsoft. My God, people have their priorities all backwards. That doesn't mean I think it should be restricted, but if you ask me which one is more dangerous, clearly the one that shoots a broadhead arrow all the way through a gel block is considerably more dangerous. So there you have it. It's probably because there are so many jurisdictions in California and many other states that even though it's not regulated on the state level, it's probably not going to be allowed in, I'll pull one out of my ass, San Francisco. Might not be allowed in a place like LA, which is known for its crime of all sorts. Again, not crime with crossbows, but enough that it will scare off Amazon. Probably not eBay. eBay will deliver things to me that Amazon won't. I wish I had one of them to show you right here, because it's in the mail. You're going to see it next time on Band State Tactical. Hey, if you like shooting one pointy thing out of a CO2-powered pew-pew-like object, how about a double-barrel version? Perhaps a little bit lighter on the power scale, but we will see. And we will find out next time, right here on Band State Tactical, where it's not illegal, as long as you make sure to check the postage stamp really closely.
Zombies falter as we night. Band State Tactical set bold. Weapons with stories unfold. Zombies crumble when we hold. Taking courage was more than gold.